best known as the host and producer of TV's landmark hit, Candid Camera. After taking over for his father, Alan Funt, Peter hosted more than 200 network episodes and specials. He's appeared in several thousand hidden camera sequences, and as a writer and journalist, Peter's opinion columns appear in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. His syndicated columns run in over 200 papers per week. Earlier in his career, Peter worked for ABC News in New York, was the editor of the National Entertainment magazine, and covered TV and film for the Sunday New York Times. He lives in Pebble Beach, where his favorite sports are golf, tennis, and people watching, of course. So join me in welcoming Peter to the stage.
Thank you. Oh, thanks very much. Oh, hi everybody. This is very cool. I saw a movie once where they only had about 5 people working on the cast, but they wanted to make it seem like they had 30 or 40. So they had a setup just like this, and they ran around that side like I did, and then they came in one at a time through here, and then they kept going around. I don't want to bring out Dick Van Dyke as soon as possible, but I've been asked to hand out, and it'll only take a little while, I'm sure. I've been asked to hand out the 52 individual awards to the cubic zirconia level donors. So they're going to come up one at a time here. No, they're not going to do that. When you all heard that Dick Van Dyke was going to be our special guest here today, I'm absolutely certain you did what I did, which was make a fast withdrawal from my memory bank about all the wonderful things that this man has done in showbiz to put a smile on our face. Isn't that right? And I don't want to delay too long, but I want to give you 2 quick pieces of data from my own memory bank about Dick Van Dyke. When I was a kid, my Aunt Dorothy took me to my first Broadway show. And we were living in the New York City suburbs at that time, and she took me to the Martin Beck Theater, and the show was Bye Bye Birdie. Now, if you love show business the way I did, even at that age, your first Broadway show is going to make an indelible memory for you. But this particular show and Dick Van Dyke's performance is still vivid in my own recollection. Okay, here's what happened next. We were living near New York City, in Westchester County as a matter of fact, and one night my family and I are at home watching TV, and this great new sitcom comes on TV, and lo and behold, it's set in the New York City suburbs in Westchester County, right where we live. And the guy in the sitcom commuted into New York City every day, just like my father, to work on a television show, just like my dad. And when he got to work on the show, he often talked about the funny things that happened to him at home. And when he came home, he told about the funny things that had happened at the office. And that's exactly what happened in our home. So this was too cool that this sitcom was now on TV, but there's even more. At our house in Westchester, where I grew up, there was a frequent visitor, a friend of my mom and dad's, who had a rapid-fire catalog of jokes. And he used to sit in the corner at my parents' parties and tell jokes. And that was Maury Amsterdam. And son of a gun, on this sitcom, this guy's sitting in the corner telling jokes. It was just too cool. So when I say I was thrilled to come here for a chance to chat with Dick Van Dyke on your behalf, this was an opportunity I just couldn't pass by. I could go on, but I'm sure we'd like to get him out here to do more of the talking. And I hope he doesn't treat these steps like the ottoman on the Dick Van Dyke Show. Please give a warm Santa Cruz welcome to Mr. Dick Van Dyke.
you.
Now, Dick, I've been asked by the ladies who run this event to spare no mercy. I'm going to grill you. I'm going to put you on the spot. But before I do, I know you'd like to say hello to these folks.
I would.
Please do.
For those of you who don't recognize me, I'm what's left of Dick Van Dyke. I know some of you were expecting me to fall down when I came. I can still do it, but it hurts now. I was born in the Coolidge administration. Anybody here born during the Coolidge? No? I was about 5 years old when the stock market crashed. Lost everything. Terrible. Thank you. You know, I believe in serendipity. Debbie Reynolds was to come, and she's an old friend. And I mean old in every sense of the word. And she said she couldn't make it. I said I would do it. I am so happy I did. I've never been to Santa Cruz. It is so charming, so beautiful. We're going to spend a few days. This beautiful place, 1907 was it? I mean, they don't make them like this. This place is just magnificent. Anyway, I'm ready to be grilled.
All right. Well, I mentioned Bye Bye Birdie because you and I were together on that day. You know, I was in the audience with my Aunt Dorothy.
You just gave your age away. That was 1960.
Yeah. Well, you don't keep secrets about your age either, do you? You're about to celebrate a birthday. Listen to this round of applause you're about to get. Okay, you're about to celebrate a birthday and it will be?
87 next month.
Why does that always generate big applause? No. It always does. As a matter of fact, while we're at it, there's something else that always gets a big round of applause. Let's try it. You're a newlywed, right?
That's right. Yeah, last February 29th.
Oh, about that. And your wife, Arlene, is here, right in the front.
She's sitting right there.
That's Arlene. And I understand that she is your makeup artist?
That's right. She also makes me up. She didn't today. This
I was going to say, you look so good.
Honey, you should have.
All right, let's get down to business here because I mentioned Bye Bye Birdie, so let's start there. That was the big breakthrough that just made your career explode. How did you get a gig like that?
The funny thing was, I was doing a game show called Mother's Day. We did diaper changing contests and things like that. And I realized that my future was not in that. So it was at the Latin Quarter in New York around noon. So every day I would go audition for some Broadway show. I tried everything but ballet and opera, I think. I got a few callbacks. And finally one day I didn't dance and I didn't sing. I went in to Gower Champion, the great...
Well, let's be sure we got that. You're auditioning for a Broadway musical that has a lot of singing and dancing.
I needed a job, real bad. I got up and sang an old Ray Bolger number, Once in Love with Amy, and did a little soft shoe. He said, you got the part. I got the part right then. And I said, Mr. Champion, I don't know how to dance. He said, we'll show you what to do. And he did. I discovered dancing during the rehearsals of that show. It was like fine.
I should interject because we introduced Arlene. My wife, Amy, is here, and I'm always in love with Amy Dick, so. Okay, so you sort of tricked him, would you say? I mean, you've done a little bit of singing.
My heart was in my mouth because I thought, how am I going to do this? Yeah. But it all worked out. I discovered singing and dancing, and I've been doing it ever since.
Who was the choreographer on Bye Bye Birdie?
Gower Champion.
Yeah,
he was the director and the choreographer.
Yeah.
And we were in Philadelphia doing what they call previews, you know. They were still forming the show. And one morning the guys came in with a song for Cheetah Rivera called Put on a Happy Face. And Gower Champion said, well, the skinny kid hasn't got anything to do in the first act. Why don't you let him do it? And Cheetah let me have that song, and it changed my life.
Well, now, truth to tell, during that Philadelphia period, there was a little bit of fear that you might get booted off the show?
Fortunately, I didn't know that at the time, or I would have, jumped out of the window. hotel. No, I was so nervous to do at it, and I really wasn't doing a very good job. I only heard years later that they were thinking of replacing me. And Gar Champion, bless his heart, said, give him a chance. And so I stayed to the show and won a Tony.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Wow, wow. I put you on the spot to perform, but what was your favorite number then?
Put on
Happy
Happy
Record. Yeah, I guess so. Okay. Oh, now, I'm going to back up, but before I do, let's cover this piece of business. There was a movie that you made of the Bye Bye Birdie vehicle.
That's right.
But not as good as the Broadway
Well, you saw
show.
the original. What did you think?
I told you, it's just absolutely fixed in my mind. I can still see up there. I can hear Paul Lynde and Charles Nelson Riley and Cheetah Rivera and Dick Gaudier as Birdie.
Oh, you remember.
Oh,
Cheetah Rivera is the most electric performer who ever stepped on the stage. She's still doing it, too. But the movie got a little bit Hollywoodized, I thought. And they left out some of the best songs. You remember Talk to Me?
Yeah.
Talk to me, baby, won't you
There he
come?
goes.
Okay. Let's not start. Which wasn't in the movie. And I just saw a production of Mary Poppins. Have you seen it on the stage? The stage production. It's a great, great evening in the theater, but it is so different than the original. There's a nanny dressed as black, real evil, who runs Mary Poppins off. I thought, why did Walt wouldn't have stood for that?
Well, okay, you open the door. Let's talk about Mary Poppins, because that was such a great, great movie. And we not only loved that, but I think our kids loved it even more.
Some of the most fun I ever had.
And your entree there was Mr. Disney himself. How'd you meet Walt and how'd that happen?
Well, I always thought, because I was a dancer and a singer, that I got the part of that. It turns out he didn't know me from Adam. He had seen me do an interview in which I said there wasn't enough family, children's entertainment out there. And that's how I got the part.
But you kind of, seriously, you've dedicated your career, I think, to wholesome, family-style entertainment. Is that not true?
Well, once I started having
These
a
people
family,
will applaud anything, by the way.
once I started having a family, I said, I don't want to do anything. My kids can't see. And I said, I know I have.
Okay, let's step back then. Born in the Midwest, whereabouts?
West Plains, Missouri.
Okay. And your folks, your parents' showbiz background?
No, I'm the first one.
What did they do? What dad do?
My dad worked for the Sunshine Biscuit Company. He was a salesman. He sold cookies during the Depression, and nobody wanted any cookies.
Oh, he must be rolling in his grave today with word that Hostess went out of business today. Yikes. You know, Hostess devil dogs and Twinkies and all that good stuff.
What are people going to do without the Twinkies?
I don't know.
When you get the munchies, what are you going to do?
Probably lose weight, that's for sure. Anyway, so Dad's in the Sunshine Biscuit
He was a
Company.
very funny guy.
Yeah.
My dad and mother both had great senses of humor.
Okay. So that rubbed off, obviously.
Yeah.
But when did you know, what age did you figure out I could do this showbiz thing for a living?
I had never thought about it really. Everybody during the war World War II, got drafted. I got a job as a radio announcer at 17 in the radio, and I loved it, and I thought that's what I was going to be. I never thought about singing or dancing or acting or anything. I thought I was going to be a radio announcer. Everything else just happened to me, didn't it?
So you went from the radio, and then you had this act I read about. Now this puzzles me. I can't figure out the name of the group. This first group was what?
The Merry Mutes.
The Merry Mutes. And what was the act, Dick?
Back in those days, in the late 40s, pantomiming to records, mouthing to records, like Milli Vanilli.
I'm picturing like Marcel Marceau does karaoke. Is that sort of that's
Very good description. It was very popular, and my buddy and I left my hometown in Illinois, drove out here. It was going to be a lark. You know, we were going to go back and do something serious with our life, and I just never got out of the business. One thing led to another.
okay, but What did the act consist of? Literally just lip syncing?
Lip syncing to records.
So why would people pay to see that?
I don't know. Well, most of the performers today lip sync to their own stuff.
Well,
we
yeah.
did. Remember Spike Jones and the City Slickers? Anybody remember them?
He had that little guy.
Yeah.
Little.
We did Mary Martin and Bing Crosby, those kind of. We did kind of spoofs on them. The audience liked it.
You didn't have to take a lot of lozenges before you went on, or drink tea or anything like that. Okay, so what's next? So now we don't need every stop, but there were a bunch of. Let me put it this way: when you got the Bye Bye Birdie job that really launched you into national prominence, circa 1960, I believe. Okay, so you're 35 years old at that time.
Just about.
Just about.
Well, he really did.
Who's counting? And so this is not an overnight sensation.
Oh no, I was around long.
And yet, I don't think people in our group here today could name many of the things. Rattle off a few. What did you do in TV or broadcasting or entertainment between the Merry Mutes and Birdie?
I finally ended up down in Atlanta, Georgia, and got a job at a radio station as an announcer, and I did an hour show a day, all by myself. Can you believe that in live television? I was in New Orleans for a little while. I had a little show down there. Finally, CBS noticed me. I think it was beating Arthur Godfrey or something in that, and I got a contract with CBS and went to New York. What's the first thing they did? I was the anchor on the CBS morning show. And my newsman was Walter Cronkite. I hadn't a clue when I was the anchor. I was 29 years old, and I didn't know anything. I don't know how I did it for an entire year. Walter Cronkite was one of the sweetest human beings I ever met. He sent me a picture of the two of us standing on the news set and put, "How did you ever make it without me?" The days of live television, and that was 3 hours a day live. Bad thing, you have to be on your toes, because things can happen. I had a guy with a team of huskies and a sled from the Laurentian Mountains, brought them all on, and he said, stay away from the dogs, they're a little touchy. And he said, don't ever say the word mush. So the first thing I did, I got on the sled and said, mush. They took off, they took down the weather set, and the cooking set. Not having this is live. You had to go on. Oh, those were the days. But I realized I wasn't cut out for that. And I did a bunch of game shows in there too. At which time, when I went and auditioned for Bye Bye Birdie.
Okay, so we're caught up. And as big a hit as that was, you were only with Bye Bye Birdie about a year.
A year.
Okay. So something even bigger happened in your career, and it's what I was talking about before you came out, the Dick Van Dyke Show. Arguably one of the most delightful sitcoms in TV history.
Well, the best writer.
Well, I was going to ask, okay, let's talk about Carl Reiner. Would you say Carl Reiner is the biggest, the most incredible creative talent you met in the TV
that I've ever known? Absolutely, and one of the finest human beings I've ever known. He was looking for somebody to play the part. He did the piping himself as Rob Hetry. And the network said, we love the show, but you're wrong.
Let's explain though. Carl Reiner invented this show, called it Head of the Family, put himself as the lead, and wrote the script. Wrote his own lines. And some network guy told him, you're not right for this part.
I saw the pilot, he wasn't very good. So he came and saw Bye Bye Birdie. And that's how I happened to get the part. Then we sat around and said, what are we going to call the show? Nobody ever heard of Dick Van Dyke. And we
I was going to say, how did you go about getting your own name? A name, would be fair to say no one in the television audience knew who this guy was initially?
Right. We couldn't come up with a name that we didn't think was kind of corny. And somebody mentioned that The old Danny Thomas show had been called Make Room for Daddy, and eventually became the Danny Thomas show. They called up Rosemary and said, "You're going to work with Dick Van Dyke?" He says, "What's the Dick Van Dyke?" That was Carl Reiner. As a writer, nobody had to act. He could listen to the way you spoke, your nuances and your accents, and the way you spoke, and write it. All you had to do was say the word. He wrote the way each one of us talked. It was
Now, was the setup that I said reminded me a bit of my own childhood? Although I must say, there's one flaw in my story. In my house in Westchester, my dad was not Rob Petrie. He was more like Alan Brady, to be honest with you. But anyway, was this Carl Reiner's family that he was putting on the screen?
in a way, yeah. Because he was trying to write something, and finally his wife said, "Why don't you write what you know about? A guy who lives in the suburbs and works in show business." And that's how he had written about 10 scripts ahead of time. I had a pilot I was trying to sell. And the minute I read his script, I just tossed it over my shoulder. The best writing, and just happened to be the best cast.
We'll say
like
something about each member of that delightful cast. Rosemary.
Well, Rosie was a child star when she was 3 or 4 years old.
Baby Rose.
And had, for my money, the best comic timing of anyone I ever met. Razor sharp. And she kind of brought Maury in, who was an old timer with comedy. And when they brought Mary to me, I said, "Well, isn't she a little young?" And she was, and she had a kind of a mid-Atlantic accent. She sounded like Katharine Hepburn. And I said, "Can she do comedy?" Did I find out by the third show, she watched Maury and watched Rosie, and she just caught it. And she became the best comedian ever.
And who are we leaving out? Oh, well, there's Carl Reiner, of course, played Alan Brady.
Yeah, but first you just heard his voice, then one season you saw the back of his head, the next thing, finally he revealed himself.
So, you mentioned, we talked about good family entertainment, and that was what the Dick Van Dyke Show really epitomized. Could a show like that succeed on TV today, do you think?
If Carl Reiner wrote it. I've often thought, if Carl was writing a show today, with the changes and everything, and the kind of latitude you have in subject matter, he could do it, but with good taste, and it would still be a family show. Carl just he captured, he didn't have to use the language or anything. I don't know. I'd like to see him write another show today.
Other than the Dick Van Dyke Show, what's your favorite 1 or 2 sitcoms in TV history, or what do you watch now?
You know something? I have to be honest. It may be my age. I don't get it. I mean, it's not that they're not good. I just don't get it. One of the things that
You're not alone, dude.
I mean, one of the things that's happened is that in the old days, our shows were 28 minutes long. There were like 3 commercials. Now there's 10 minutes of commercials per half hour. Those shows have to tell their story in 20 minutes. So they really have to move fast. There's a lot of canned laughter, I don't understand. We never used it, we just used the audience.
Is that right? There's no sweetening in your show?
No. Maybe if it was a cut from one scene to another, they'd fill it in. But we just use our audience, which is the best way to do television with an audience. I have to tell you, the theme to the Van Dyke Show, Sweet Maury Amsterdam, wrote words to it. And I don't think they've ever been published.
Did you know that the Dick Van Dyke Show theme actually has lyrics?
Yeah, Maury wrote them.
And since he brought it up, Mr. Van Dyke is going to sing that for us right now.
The words of the song kind of tell you who Maury was. So you think that you've got trouble? Well, trouble's a bubble. So tell Mr. Trouble to get lost. Why not hold your head up high and stop crying, start trying, and don't forget to keep your fingers crossed. When you find the joy of living is loving and giving, you'll be there when the winning dice are tossed. A smile is just a frown that's turned upside down. Smile and that frown will defrost. And don't forget to keep your fingers crossed. And that's why I
How about that?
Wow, that was Maury.
Bravo.
What a guy.
So Maury Amsterdam wrote those lyrics because why?
He liked to write songs. He actually had a couple of hit songs in the 40s.
Yucca
Coca-Cola. Yucca Puck. They wrote Rum and Coca-Cola. Go down Point Crumon. You have to be really old to remember that. This is in the 40s. He liked to write songs. They wrote it, and nobody ever published it. But I have a little quartet, 3 young guys, and we sing it a lot. I want people to hear it.
Well, we're leaping right up to the present day then. They're called the
Fantastics with an X.
Fantastics. Okay.
Yeah.
And,
I didn't make it up.
And you guys, this is not mine. This is you actually.
We actually sing, yeah, 4-part harmony. They came to me. They found me in a Starbucks one day, and we started.
They discovered you and
Yeah, the kid came up and said, "Mr. Van, I understand you like to harmonize." I said, "I sure do." And the guys came over to my house that night. And we started singing, and for about a year we just have pizza on Tuesday night and sing. And somebody said, "Could you sing on our benefit?" Which we did. We ended last year. We sang for the president at the Ford Theater in Washington. We sing for the Lakers a lot. We sing the national anthem for them at the beginning. But the guy always said, "And here they are, the Vanna-Sticks." I said, "No, it's the Fantastic." we do mostly benefits, fundraisers, and we're very busy doing that. We love it.
So there's got to be a secret here. I mean, you told us your age, and you told us that you're still so active,
Yeah.
and you've been singing for us. So, and this is a medical-related group here. What's the secret?
I guess choose your ancestors very carefully.
Make a note of that.
Yeah. For me, I think the secret is to keep moving. I think, they say that keep your brain healthy with crossword, exercise. I've always exercised and I've always danced. And I had to speak not too long ago to a group of people my age in a restaurant. So I gave them some tips about how to handle yourself physically. Usually if you get a twinge in your knee or the hip or something, your body notices it, but your brain doesn't. You're not aware of it. But your body unconsciously starts to make compensations, and what happens is, you get it in the knee, you'll start going down the steps this way. Don't do that. I mean, it's gonna hurt a little, but if you keep going down the stairs the right way, and keep stretching and moving, now I have a lot of arthritis, and have had for a long time. It doesn't bother me, because I go to a gym 3 days a week, I swim the other couple of days a week, do the yoga that I can do at my age. But I think that's the secret. If you keep moving, a lot of guys will give up. I had a guy kidding me the other night, a contemporary at dinner. He says, why are you going to the gym? What for? When he left, his wife brought him his walker.
You know, I did a benefit at a senior retirement facility not too long ago, and before I went on, the lady in charge said, "Can I speak to you?" And I said, "Well, why don't you wait till I finish?" And she said, "Sure." So I did my whole act, and then I came off, and she said, "So here's the thing I want to talk about, Mr. Funt. That was great. Would you want a room here? We have a vacancy. I got to exercise a little bit more."
Well, you have the reservation as a backup. I love to tell this joke. 2 old guys are sitting on a bench. One of them says, "How did those memory pills work you took?" He said, "Great." He said, "They work great." He said, "Well, maybe you ought to try. What's the name of it?" He says, "What's the name of that flower with the thorns on it?" He said, "A rose?" He said, "That's it. Rose, what's the name of those pills that I take?" I have to tell you that his dad, I knew Alan Funt. I told him that I used to watch that show, that only training I ever had in acting was watching candid camera and real people reacting. And he tells me that Marlon Brando used to call up Alan Funt and ask for clips from the show. And who else? And Paul Newman.
Nobody had ever heard of it.
No. That really is there's a show now called What Would You Do? Where I watch that show because you see real human beings reacting. It's the best kind of training. Your dad was something.
He really was, and enjoyed your work. I can testify. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. But you were talking about your longevity and exercise or whatever, but you had some pretty serious vices along the way. Alcoholism, nasty nicotine habits. So,
is there any other kind?
So talk a little bit about those battles and how you overcame these problems.
For me, alcohol snuck up on me. When I was young, I was really a bit shy. I was around strangers. And I found somebody gave me a martini that suddenly I became very relaxed and gregarious. And I thought, funny. But it caught up to me. I finally realized I was depending on it every night when I came home from work. And joined the famous Anonymous, and also went to treatment, which for me didn't work. But through a lot of praying, it just slowly fell away from me. All of a sudden, it didn't do the job it was supposed to do. I didn't get anything out of it. I would get a little nauseous and dizzy, and it just went away. Thank God. Yeah, that's been almost 30 years now. I haven't smoked in about 25.
Now you mentioned
I
prayer.
have no vices.
You mentioned prayer. Religion in your life played a big part for a while. You were raised as
A Presbyterian.
Okay.
Yeah.
And but you thought about going into the ministry?
Oh yeah, back then I realized I wasn't even qualified. Oh no. No, and I've kind of moved through Catholicism. I've been to synagogue a lot and almost everything except terrorism. Haven't attended any of those.
Okay, so what's your, I don't get too heavy here, but what's your view then? How did this all shake out for you? You a religious guy today or not?
Well, I'm not so much interested in religiosity as I am the faith in living the life. I think there's a problem with the church today. Attendance is down. Seminaries are having to put ads trying to get young men to come there. And I think we need some changes. Perhaps not a new religion, but kind of a new way of being religion, which is a little more intuitive. And a lot of people have doubts they don't want to talk about. I think somebody should speak up about that. Lots of doubt, not about their core faith, but some of the things they're asked to do and believe. And I think somebody should open up about opening up religion a little bit, encouraging doubt and encouraging experimentation even, and make it more intuitive. I think it would be a great idea.
That'd be a good idea for the Republican Party, actually. All right. Because I read in your book, and Dick wrote a book last year called My Lucky Life.
Yeah, what a dumb, you know what I wanted to call it? Everybody else has got a book. They wouldn't do it.
But you mentioned in there a little bit about your religious thoughts, but you also talked a little bit about politics, snuck in a little bit there. Like my dad in the 60s, my dad volunteered to raise money for Eugene McCarthy.
Oh, yeah.
And I gather you did too.
Yes, I did. I went to the convention in New York with Eugene. He was the first one who thought we ought to get out of Vietnam. I kind of got behind him. But what kind of a democracy is it? We have to have a couple $100 million to run for the president. I don't think that's right.
In fact, even to run for Congress, a congressperson I used to know told me the day he was elected, he had to start 6 hours of every working day to raise money for the next time around.
I think the television, it's our air. They should be allowed to speak to the people for nothing. I don't believe we should just have to pay for the airtime to keep this democracy.
Okay, so we don't want to let our time expire without touching on some other great.
Is our time going to expire?
Maybe I shouldn't use that word for both our sake. But we mentioned Mary Poppins. What were some of your? You had a few clinkers, right? I mean, what's the worst thing you were in after you became a big star? So you're in Bye Bye Birdie, the Dick Van Dyke Show. And then what after that was the biggest stinker you put your face in?
Oh, well, I have a lot to choose from there.
Okay.
I did one called The Runner Stumbles, which was just terrible. Only because
was that, a movie?
I was in it. Yeah, it was a movie.
Movie. Okay.
And I was
The Runner Stumbles?
Yeah.
Okay.
A very serious, heavy drama, which wasn't my kind of thing. I did one movie for Disney called Lieutenant Robinson Crusoe. It was kind of a B picture, but it was about a pilot who gets shot down over Pacific Island and gets a chimpanzee as his man Friday. It was the best person I've ever worked with. I have never had such an experience. He was 130 pounds. He was a big guy, about 10 years old. And the first day I walked on the set, he was in one of these kind of chairs. And I had a cigarette and a styrofoam cup of coffee, and the chimp went. And I went over there, he took the coffee, took the cigarette, smoked the cigarette, and drank the coffee. And every day I brought him his coffee and his cigarette. We ended up having lunch together. Every day he ate with a fork. He was the smartest guy. He would get down and go through my hair, and then I'd have to go through it looking for lines. And there was I don't know if you ever saw this movie, we played a poker game. I made up cards, and there's a mirror behind me, and he's watching me and playing his card. He had 103 that day. He was very ill, and he played, drank the beer. The minute they said cut, he'd go, oh.
We are talking about a chimp,
We're
right?
talking about a chimpanzee. He was so smart. The next movie he was in, he was a Tarzan movie. He bit the guy in the face.
Talking about typecasting. They put him in a Tarzan
movie. Okay. I think the guy pinched his arm or something. He bit that, and that was the end of his career. And he had been raised in a home by the trainer. He thought he was a human. He acted like one. They put him in the park out at Griffith Park, in a big outdoor cage, all monkeys. I went to see him, and he's sitting in the middle like that. He saw me and ran over and grabbed the bars. He thought I'd come to get him. And it was like, I'm in here with a bunch of monkeys. Get me out of here. Oh, if I could have taken him home, I would have. But I walked away and I couldn't even look back. It just made me. I've never worked with anybody. It was so much fun.
Well, we're not going to tell Mary Tyler Moore that story.
But she was a lot prettier. She got to the place where she could read my mind. We could improvise a scene together. Carl would just give us the situation, and we'd do it, and Mary just, bang. She was brilliant. Brilliant. Nobody realized it. She could be Ginger Rogers or Katharine Hepburn or Lucille Ball. She could be anybody she wanted to. She was one of the few women who were beautiful and could be funny and still be feminine. Always. And she
have a crush on her?
What?
Crush.
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding? Who wouldn't? Last year she won the SAG Lifetime Achievement Award, and I got to give it to her. And this year, I'm getting it, and I hope Mary gets it.
In just a few months. That's in January, right? How about that?
I said at last I found a home with the Actors Guild, because in the business, actors would say, well, he's a dancer, really. And the dancer would say, no, he's a singer. And the singer said, no, he's got to be an actor. So I think I got a home now.
All right, so after these stinkers and the chimp and all this, you actually had a series that lasted longer than the Dick Van Dyke Show, a full decade.
The longest job I ever had.
Full decade on network television, where these days, 5 weeks is a big deal. And this is diagnosis murder.
I was a doctor, yeah, who was never in the hospital.
Now, what's the backstory there?
Freddie Silverman, who was president of NBC at one time, came to me and said, I want you to do a spin-off from, I think it was Jake and the Fat Man. You remember that show? And I said, I was 65, and I said, I'm too old to be doing an hour show. He said, well, just do the pilot. I just need you to do. So we did it, and so we ended up doing about 3 movies, and it became a series, but one of those where they'd pick up 5 shows, and then we'd wait, and then they'd pick up 3 more.
Torture.
And it kind of, went like that for 10 years. But we all used to be out chasing the criminal, and somebody would say, who's running the hospital?
Okay, but there's a piece of this story that I would know nothing about, so I'm so curious. You worked with your son for 10 years on the show.
Oh, yeah, I carried that whole thing to its ultimate. I had my kids on, my grandkids, the whole thing. But my son, Barry, played the police detective, and played my son on there, which were great fun.
Well, because I know for the years that I worked on camera with my dad, it was very stressful for him. I mean, he was rooting for me, but he was more nervous about what I was doing than anything else about the show. So that's why I asked, was this a comfort zone for you?
Oh, it was wonderful. We worked together so naturally.
So Barry must be a lot better than I was.
Yeah, he's great. He's a good actor too, and he's good looking.
Well, this time went by so quickly, but we promised the folks that if any of you have a question for Dick, now's the time to shoot it this way. I know this is not part of the requirement, but here's one, right? Andy. How many grandchildren do you have?
I have 4 kids, 7 grandchildren, and 4 great. And they don't show any signs of slowing down either. So.
I think one of your funniest movies was Cold Turkey.
The movie Cold Turkey.
Oh, what did you ask about it?
Funny.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
more of a statement in the form of a question.
The funny thing was, I went to Norman Lear with my own script. Everybody was trying to quit smoking. This is about 20 years ago or so. And I had a show about one guy trying to quit smoking and all the stuff he went through. And Norman tried to write it. He said, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. He finally came up with this idea of a whole town trying to quit smoking and just nearly killing each other. And it really worked. We shot it out in Iowa, out in the country in Iowa. Half the townspeople were in that show. And Norman was in one scene where he kicked the dog. That was Norman Lear.
What was your question, sir? Your brother Jerry.
My brother Jerry. Jerry lives down in Arkansas. He married an Arkansas girl. Last year, we did, you remember the show called The Sunshine Boys? Sure. It was
Neil Simon.
Neil Simon.
Yep.
It was about a couple of, actually, old Yiddish comedians. But Jerry and I rewrote it with Neil's approval as two Gentile guys. And we did it in LA. We went to Dallas and did it. And it was so much fun, and it worked. My problem is my brother kills me. I can't keep a straight face. Jerry's the funniest man I know.
But how'd this be? Sleepwalking.
Oh, on the show?
Yeah.
Well, like a lot of the episodes of that show came from real life. My brother was a sleepwalker when he was a kid. I caught him one day, stark naked with his father's golf clubs over his head. And it was snowing out. And I said, "Wait, boy, I'm going to play golf." He almost got him thrown out of the army. I think he was almost 20 when he finally stopped. It got to the place where people in town would pick him up in his pajamas somewhere across town in Danville, and they'd call up and say, "Jerry's here."
Was he funnier asleep or awake?
He's funnier awake. He's one of those people that cannot help it. He's got a funny bone. Whatever he does is funny. When we were doing our record pantomime act, he was, I think, 16, and the folks drove him out to California to see our act. He went straight home and stole the entire act, the whole pantomime act. And that's what started him in showbiz.
A
He was
naive
funny
soul
man.
like myself would ask, what is there to steal in a pantomime act?
Just the record. But we're doing Sunshine Boys about two very old comedians who don't like each other anymore. And in rehearsal, I came walking in and said, "Hi." And Jerry said, "Dick, you don't have to play old anymore."
Who else has a question? Yes, ma'am. The Midnight Mission and your association.
Do you know about the mission? Oh, thank you for bringing that up. I worked with the Midnight Mission down at 6 in San Pedro in L.A. I've been with them about 15 years now. I'm the fundraising chairman. Not an easy job. But the mission's been there, I think in 14 will be 100 years. And they started out, feeding and clothing old derelicts like me, mostly drunks. But then they started a program of education and training and sobering people up and putting them back in society. And they become a model for the entire country. We just built a new mission, thanks to the fundraising chairman. And now next week we have a graduating class. The guys come in and they may start out mopping in the kitchen and then they move up into maybe a secretarial job. And they get kids in there, 18 years old, who've been on drugs, who can't write a check or don't know how to drive a car. We educate them. Now we have computers. We have a whole educational system. We get them jobs, and on the 3rd floor now we have little apartments they can stay in at cheap rent until they're on their feet. And next week we'll have graduation. All these guys in suits and a hair comb, all dressed up, going out into the world again. If you're ever in town during Christmas or Easter, the celebration down there is unbelievable. I started as a server, and now I'm the maitre d'. I go around, sing, dance, table hop, talk to people. I know most of those homeless now. But it's the greatest experience, the most satisfying thing, and thank you for mentioning it, because it's my pride and joy.
And maybe that's a good note because it so sums up our guest's spirit and wonderful career and ability to make all of us feel better and laugh.
Oh, made me feel better.
Yeah, well. So one more
I
time,
love your
please
town.
join me in thanking Dick Van Dyke. Thank you.